There I was, standing in the parking lot of the Marriott downtown, staring at my wife's Tesla Model Y parked next to my brother's Audi. The location pin on my phone matched exactly where her car had been for the past 2 hours. Same as yesterday, same as the day before, same as every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months when she told me she was working late. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone as I took pictures of both cars, the hotel entrance, and the timestamp. Evidence. Hard, undeniable evidence that would change everything. I never thought I'd be that guy. The one who tracks his wife's movements. The one who builds spreadsheets of location data. The one who becomes an amateur detective in his own marriage. But when someone you've trusted for 8 years suddenly starts changing patterns, you notice. And when technology gives you a way to confirm your worst suspicions, sometimes you can't help but look. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how I went from being a happily married software engineer to a man standing in a hotel parking lot with divorce papers already drafted on his laptop. My name is Daniel, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. My wife, Rebecca, and I met in college. She was studying business. I was in computer science. We were the power couple everyone envied. She became a marketing executive at a Fortune 500 company. I developed software for a tech startup that eventually got acquired. We had the house in the suburbs, the matching Teslas, his and hers, a splurge after my company's acquisition, and plans to start a family next year after her big promotion cycle. My brother Jason was always close to us. 3 years older than me, he'd been my best man at our wedding. He'd gone through a rough divorce 2 years ago and had been staying with us on and off while he got back on his feet. Rebecca had always been incredibly supportive of him, even when I thought he was taking advantage of our hospitality. "Family comes first," she'd say. "Your brother needs us right now." I noticed the first change around Valentine's Day this year. Rebecca had always been big on celebrations, anniversaries, birthdays, holidays. But this year, she called last minute to say she couldn't make our dinner reservation because of an emergency client meeting. It was disappointing, but I understood. Her career was important to her, and sometimes these things happen. But then it happened again in March and April. And suddenly our regular date nights were being canceled more often than not. She started working late too, sometimes 3 nights a week. Her texts became shorter, less affectionate. When she did come home, she'd head straight for the shower before even greeting me. "Just washing off the day," she'd say when I asked about this new routine. "You know how the office AC makes me feel grimy." Then came the password changes. We'd always shared our phone passwords, not because we snooped on each other, but because it was convenient. Need to check an email while your phone is charging? Use the other person's. Want to order food while your partner is driving? Their phone is right there. But suddenly, Rebecca changed her passcode. When I asked about it casually over breakfast, she barely looked up from her coffee. "Oh, new company security policy. All executives have to change passwords monthly now and they can't be shared. Corporate espionage concerns or something." She shrugged like it was nothing, but I noticed she angled her phone away from me after that. Here's where I want to be very clear about something. I wasn't looking to invade her privacy. I wasn't some controlling husband who needed to know her every move. But when someone goes from being an open book to a locked vault, you notice. The real turning point came one night in May. Rebecca said she had to work late, again, but I got a call from her coworker Amy around 8 p.m. asking if Rebecca was feeling better. "Better?" I asked, confused. "Yeah, she left the office early saying she wasn't feeling well. I just wanted to check if she needed anything. We have that big presentation tomorrow." My stomach dropped. I told Amy that Rebecca was resting but would be fine for tomorrow, then hung up and stared at my phone. According to Rebecca's texts, she was still at the office, stuck in meetings. But according to Amy, she'd left hours ago. That was the first night I opened the Tesla app. We both had Teslas, both linked to the same account for convenience. I'd never used the location feature to track her before. It had seemed like an invasion of privacy. But now I needed to know where my wife was when she was lying about being at work. The little blue dot on the map showed her car at an address downtown. I zoomed in and felt my heart pounding in my chest when I realized it was the Marriott Hotel. Not the office, not a friend's place, a hotel. I wish I could tell you I confronted her that night, that I called her and demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I watched as her car left the hotel at 10:43 p.m. and made its way home. I quickly closed the app before she arrived, pretending to be half asleep when she came in. She kissed my forehead and whispered, "Sorry I'm so late, babe. This project is killing me." I laid awake all night, her lie hanging in the air between us as she slept soundly beside me. The next day, I did something I'm not proud of, but I needed to know. I created a simple program that would log the location data from the Tesla app every 15 minutes. If I was going to accuse my wife of whatever this was, I needed more than one night of suspicious behavior. For the next 2 weeks, I collected data, and a pattern emerged that made me physically ill. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Rebecca would leave work around 6 p.m. and drive to the Marriott downtown. Her car would remain there until approximately 10:30 p.m. Then she would drive home. On days when she actually was working late, her car stayed at her office building. But who was she meeting? I scrolled through her recent calls and texts. Nothing suspicious there, which meant she was probably using another app to communicate. I checked our credit card statements. No hotel charges. Whoever she was meeting was paying for the room. I considered following her, sitting in the hotel lobby, confronting her in the act. But something held me back. Maybe it was fear of what I'd find. Maybe it was the last shred of trust begging me to find an innocent explanation. Then, 3 weeks into my data collection, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On my tracking log, I noticed that on the same Tuesday, Rebecca's car went to the Marriott. Another location appeared briefly before disappearing from the app. My brother's Tesla Model 3, also linked to our account because I'd helped him with the purchase, had been at the same hotel at the same time. It could be a coincidence, I told myself. Maybe he was meeting someone else there. Maybe the app glitched. Maybe. But deep down, I knew. The next Thursday, I called Rebecca and told her I had to go out of town unexpectedly for work. She sounded almost relieved, saying she'd be working late anyway. I watched through the app as her car made its way to the Marriott at the usual time. I waited 30 minutes, then drove there myself, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. And that's how I ended up in that parking lot, staring at my wife's Tesla, parked 3 spaces away from my brother's Audi. He must have driven his other car to avoid detection on the Tesla app. I'd only seen his Tesla there once due to what must have been carelessness on his part. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, debating what to do next. Confront them in the hotel? Wait until they came out? Or just drive away and pretend I never knew? The betrayal felt like a physical weight, crushing my chest. My wife and my brother, the 2 people I trusted most in the world. At 9:17 p.m., my decision was made for me when my phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Just finished up here. Grabbing a quick bite, then heading home. Don't wait up if you're tired, XO. Another lie. I watched as she sent the text, then put a reminder in my phone to check the location logs later to confirm what time she actually left the hotel. I was becoming obsessive about evidence, about documenting every lie. Maybe because focusing on the data helped me avoid focusing on the pain. I drove home and waited. Rebecca arrived at 10:52 p.m., looking fresh and relaxed, not like someone who had been hunched over spreadsheets for hours. She smiled when she saw me. "Hey, I thought you were out of town." She set her purse down on the counter, a flicker of something, alarm, crossing her face. "Meeting got canceled last minute," I said, watching her carefully. "How was work?" "Exhausting," she sighed dramatically, opening the fridge. "We're trying to land this new client and nothing's going right." I nodded, letting her elaborate on the lie. With each detail she added, each fake problem with this fake late meeting, I felt something inside me harden. This woman, who had promised to honor and cherish me, was standing in our kitchen, looking me in the eye, and creating an entire fictional evening without a hint of remorse. "That sounds stressful," I said, when she finally paused. "Hey, have you heard from Jason lately? He hasn't returned my calls." She barely flinched. She was good. I had to give her that. "Not since last week. Maybe he's busy with that new job." Another lie. I'd checked Jason's location too. After leaving the Marriott, he'd driven straight to his apartment, not even stopping for gas. "Yeah, maybe," I agreed. "I'm pretty tired. I think I'll head to bed." I couldn't confront her yet. I needed more evidence, more data. I needed to be absolutely certain before I blew up my marriage and my relationship with my brother. So for another 2 weeks, I collected information. I installed a dash cam in my car and drove past the Marriott at strategic times, capturing footage of their cars in the parking lot. I recorded my conversations with Rebecca about where she was going and when she'd be home. I created backups of the Tesla location data, and I consulted a lawyer. Infidelity might not matter much in divorce courts these days, but the systematic lying and gaslighting would help my case if things got messy. But what about my brother? That betrayal felt even worse in some ways. This was the guy who had taught me to ride a bike, who had stood next to me at my wedding, who had crashed on our couch when his own marriage fell apart. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. His marriage had ended because of infidelity too, though he'd been vague about the details. Had he been the cheater in that scenario as well? Had I unknowingly harbored a serial homewrecker? After a month of surveillance, I had all the evidence I needed. 18 separate occasions where Rebecca claimed to be working late, but was actually at the Marriott. 14 of those times, Jason's car was there too. Dozens of lies documented meticulously in my spreadsheets and recordings. I considered many ways to confront them: showing up at the hotel room door, sending the evidence to our entire family, leaving printouts of the Tesla location data all over our bedroom. But in the end, I decided on something quieter, but more devastating. I waited for a Sunday when I knew Jason was coming over for our usual family dinner. Rebecca had spent the day cooking his favorite meal, a detail that now made me nauseous, and I had been unusually quiet, claiming I had a headache. As we sat down to eat, I placed a folder on the table next to my plate. "What's that?" Rebecca asked, passing the salad to Jason, their fingers brushing in a way that now seemed so obvious. "Just some paperwork I need you both to look at," I said calmly, serving myself some roasted potatoes. Rebecca frowned slightly but continued serving food. Jason, always nosy, reached for the folder. "What kind of paperwork? Something for the house?" "Go ahead and open it," I said, taking a sip of water and watching them over the rim of my glass. Jason opened the folder and froze. Inside were printouts of the location data showing both their vehicles at the Marriott, screenshots of Rebecca's texts claiming to be at work, and photos I'd taken of their cars in the hotel parking lot. On top was a document from my lawyer outlining divorce proceedings. Rebecca's face drained of color. "Daniel, what is this?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I think you know exactly what it is," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Your Tesla has been telling me where you really go on your late work nights." Jason pushed back from the table, the folder clutched in his hand. "Dan, listen. We can explain..." "Explain what?" I asked, finally allowing some of my anger to show. "Explain how my wife and my brother have been sleeping together behind my back? Explain how you've both been lying to my face for months? Please, go ahead. I'd love to hear these explanations." Rebecca started crying, those tears she could always summon on command. "It's not what you think. We've just been talking. Jason's been helping me with some personal issues." "At the Marriott?" I laughed bitterly. "For 4 hours at a time? Twice a week? Save the lies, Rebecca. I have 6 weeks of data showing exactly where you've both been and when. The Tesla app logs everything: location, duration, even when the car is turned on and off." Jason's face had gone from pale to red. "You've been spying on us? That's illegal." The audacity nearly took my breath away. "Checking the location of a car registered in my name on an account I pay for is not illegal. Sleeping with your brother's wife, however, is definitely immoral." What followed was exactly what you'd expect. Denials, then anger, then bargaining. Rebecca tried to minimize. It only happened a few times. Then blame me. "You were always working, never paying attention to me." Then beg, "We can work through this. Go to counseling." Jason tried the brotherly angle. "Blood is thicker than water, man." Then switched to threats. "I'll tell everyone you're a psycho who stalks his wife." When that didn't work, I just sat there, oddly calm now that everything was in the open. I'd already moved most of my important belongings to a rented apartment. I'd already transferred my half of our joint funds to a separate account. I'd already mourned the marriage and the brotherhood I thought I had. "I'm not interested in explanations or reconciliation," I finally said, standing up. "The divorce papers are being filed tomorrow. Rebecca, you have 2 weeks to decide if you want to try for an amicable split or if you want to fight me on this. Just know that I have enough evidence of adultery to make things very difficult for you if we go to court." I turned to my brother. "Jason, I want nothing more to do with you. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my workplace. You're dead to me." Rebecca was sobbing now, mascara running down her face. "Daniel, please. I love you. It was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store," I said, picking up my jacket. "What you two did was a deliberate choice, made over and over again. You chose to betray me 18 times that I know of. That's not a mistake. That's a campaign." I walked to the door, then turned back for one final thought. "Oh, and Rebecca, you might want to find a different way to get around town. I've removed your car from my Tesla account, so you'll need to set up your own. I wouldn't want you to lose the ability to track your vehicle's location. It's clearly a useful feature." With that, I walked out, closing the door on my marriage and on one of the longest relationships of my life. In my car, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had happened. I cried all the way to my new apartment, grieving not just the betrayal but also the lost future I'd planned. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn, and maybe this is the part that will help someone else going through something similar. 2 days after the confrontation, I received a call from Jason's ex-wife, Megan. We hadn't spoken much since their divorce, but apparently she'd heard about what happened through a mutual friend. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Something I should have told you 2 years ago." She told me that her marriage to Jason had ended because he'd had an affair with her younger sister, a pattern I hadn't known about. She had discovered it much the same way I had, through inconsistencies in his stories, through unexplained absences. But without a Tesla to track, she'd had to hire a private investigator to confirm her suspicions. "He has a type," she said bitterly. "He goes after what belongs to family members. I think it's some kind of sick competition thing with him. I didn't tell you because I was so humiliated, and he threatened to make the divorce even messier if I poisoned his relationship with you." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about Rebecca's betrayal. This was about my brother's pattern of behavior, his deliberate targeting of women connected to family members. Had he pursued Rebecca because she was my wife? Was the thrill in taking what belonged to me? The thought made me sick, but it also helped me understand that this wasn't about my failings as a husband. This was about Jason's pathology and Rebecca's weakness in falling for it. I shared this information with Rebecca via email, not to reconcile, but because I thought she should know exactly who she had thrown away our marriage for. I included Megan's contact information in case she wanted to verify the story herself. 3 weeks later, as our divorce proceedings were underway, Rebecca requested to meet for coffee. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She looked terrible, thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She slid into the booth across from me, hands wrapped around her coffee mug like she was cold despite the summer heat. "I called Megan," she said without preamble. "She told me everything, about Jason and her sister, about how he did the same thing to 3 other women she found out about later. Always relatives, always forbidden fruit." I nodded, but said nothing. "He told me I was special," she continued, a bitter laugh escaping her, "that he'd never felt this way before, that it was worth risking everything because what we had was once in a lifetime." She shook her head. "Turns out I was just another conquest in his sick game." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Because I want you to know that I understand now. What I did wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. I was manipulated by someone who's done this before, someone who knew exactly what buttons to push." She looked up at me, eyes pleading. "It doesn't excuse what I did. I made my choices, but I want you to know that it wasn't because I didn't love you, or because you weren't enough." Part of me wanted to reach across the table and comfort her. Old habits die hard, but the larger part remembered the systematic lying, the gaslighting, the way she'd made me doubt my own instincts. "I appreciate you telling me this," I said finally, "but it doesn't change anything between us." She nodded, wiping away a tear. "I know. I'm seeing a therapist now, trying to understand why I was so vulnerable to his manipulation, why I risked everything good in my life for someone like him." We sat in silence for a few minutes, the remnants of 8 years together hanging between us. "What happened with Jason?" I finally asked, curiosity getting the better of me. Rebecca's expression hardened. "I confronted him about Megan, about the pattern. He denied everything at first. Then when I showed him proof, he said some truly vile things, called me naive, disposable, said I was just like all the others. I realized then that he never cared about me at all. I was just a way to compete with you." She looked down at her coffee. "I kicked him out that night, blocked his number. He's been trying to contact me through fake accounts, mutual friends. It's Scary, actually. I've thought about getting a restraining order. Despite everything, I felt a pang of concern. Be careful, and document everything. She nodded. The irony isn't lost on me. You documented my betrayal. Now I'm documenting his harassment. We finished our coffee in silence, and as we stood to leave, Rebecca handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "I'm not contesting anything in the divorce. This is the signed agreement accepting your terms." She hesitated. "I don't deserve any more than you've offered, which is already more generous than I would be in your position." I took the envelope, surprised. My lawyer had told me to expect a fight. "Thank you," I said simply. Rebecca looked at me one last time. The Tesla tracking, in a weird way, I'm grateful. Without it, I might never have seen Jason for who he really is. I'd still be his pawn. She attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Technology, huh? It reveals the truth whether we want it to or not. As she walked away, I realized something important. The technology had revealed the truth, but it was my choice to look for that truth that had set me free. I could have ignored my suspicions. I could have pretended not to see the patterns. I could have accepted the lies because they were more comfortable than the reality. But I chose to face the truth, painful as it was. And that choice, more than any app or device, was what allowed me to escape a relationship built on deception. It's been 8 months now since that day in the Marriott parking lot. The divorce is final. I've moved to a new city, started a new job. I've even started dating again, slowly and cautiously. I'm more guarded now, but also more attuned to red flags I might have missed before. As for Rebecca and Jason, I heard through mutual friends that she moved across the country for a fresh start. Jason apparently tried to reconcile with Megan, a desperate move after losing his backup plan, but she publicly exposed his pattern of behavior to their entire social circle. Last I heard, he was complaining about being canceled and how nobody understands his side of the story. But here's what I want you to take away from my experience. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong in your relationship, pay attention to that feeling. It doesn't mean you should immediately become suspicious or controlling, but it does mean you should be honest with yourself about what you're experiencing. And if you do discover betrayal, remember that it says more about them than it does about you. Rebecca's choices weren't a reflection of my worth as a husband, and Jason's behavior wasn't because I was an inadequate brother. Some people simply make selfish, destructive choices, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. The Tesla tracking was just a tool that revealed what was already happening. The technology didn't create the betrayal, it simply exposed it. And painful as that exposure was, it freed me from a marriage that had already been broken by lies. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that ultimately set us free. And sometimes, the path to those truths comes from unexpected places, like an app on your phone that shows you exactly where the people you love really are when they claim to be somewhere else. P.S. For those wondering about the legal implications of tracking someone's vehicle, I consulted with my attorney about this specifically. Since the Tesla was registered in my name, on an account I paid for, and with Rebecca's full knowledge that the vehicles were linked to the same account with location tracking enabled, there was no legal issue with me viewing that data. Had I installed a hidden tracker without her knowledge, that would have been a different story. Always consult with a legal professional before monitoring someone else's movements, even if you suspect wrongdoing. PPS. And yes, I kept my Tesla, but I turned off the location sharing feature. Some things are better left untracked.